My name's Senura Fonseca, and I'm the founder of Carbon Blueprint, and I'm here with Faraj.
I'm Faraj, and I am the co-founder of Ceylon Green and Aqua, an urban agriculture startup.
Awesome.
Yeah. So hi, Seaweed.
So,
Anyway, so this JLX has given me a set of questions to ask you. And,
quite complicated questions, I can
oh,
see.
I'm not quite sure. So let me start. What made you? How do I put this in an easy way? Okay, what made you realize or go behind your passion in terms of being an entrepreneur?
Well, to be honest, I think from school days itself, hustling was part of what I wanted to do. So I guess entrepreneurship was part and parcel of what I throughout school, and then leaving school itself, always want to do something new and create something new as well. So something I always wanted to was build a brand for myself, build a company, and build something that will be able to give back to the environment and also to society as well. So I thought the best way to do that with my own freedom and with my own thinking, where I'll be able to make the decisions and get things going the way I want, was to be entrepreneur and kind of create my own kind of platform. So that's how I actually got into Carbon Blueprint and a few of the other startups that I'm involved in. What about you? What got you
Well,
into
for
this?
me, it's quite a little bit opposite. So I was into an coming from the urbanized or in a cluttered environment or a society, and for us it was just a white collar job, make sure that you kind of like have a secured salary at the end of the month, but kind of dragged this whole life for about I would say about 15 years, and I started very young. When I was very young, I started working. Uh, but then at a point that I started realizing with after COVID, especially while it was not even the pandemic, but then thought like how the world is going on, and why not have something passive coming in apart from having your where do you say a monthly salary.
That's
So what should I do, or what can I drive towards this? So when I was
basically,
thinking,
you
yeah,
figured the 9 to 5 is not going to cut it
not
or
gonna
pay the
work it,
bills.
or it's not enough, I would say. Then again, when I became a father, right? So this drive in me kind of like drove me crazy, where I didn't have enough time to concentrate on my family as well, because it was work, and if I am committed to something, then I have to be 100% and not a foot here or a foot there kind of situation. So I was honestly, before Ceylon Green and Aqua, before getting into agriculture or farming, I was actually thinking of what I'm really passionate about in order to do something if I have to do, because working is something that I mean, the current job that I was doing at that point was something that I like to do, but then again, if I have to completely go out of it, then it has to be something that I even not just but I love. So food and food is being a Muslim and coming from a community in Colombo, like food is something a huge part of our culture. And that is how started up a restaurant. But then when I was running the restaurant is when I really understood the problem in the market. It's not like buying veggies or stuff for your home, because you have to have a constant supply of things. Then
What
you
type of
just
restaurant did you have?
it was I had a healthy restaurant. Not a healthy person, so I was a hypocrite at that point. But then I still made sure there were dishes like, for example, biryani, which was cooked without oil, kind of thing. First, a bit of fusion and traditional and things like that. And but the main point is that's when I really understood the problem in the market, that the insecurity in food, like someone who's let's say a middle income person can't just constantly keep on purchasing the same thing again and again, because a classic example is like if I go to buy carrot at that point, this was right before pandemic, it was about let's say 400 rupees a kilo today. Sometime it becomes 200, but then on the next day it's like 700, 800, or I don't even find carrot in the market. It came to a situation like that. So that's when I really understood that why not grow something of your own to source to your restaurant. So that's how the whole thing started. Like started growing in the balcony, like things that I can do. not the carrots, I mean, but then definitely like some of the herbs and stuff like mint and things that I could constantly have a supply of. So yeah, pretty much that's how it started.
No, I guess I completely agree with you when it comes to kind of figuring out our passion and all. Because I myself, I studied law right after school. And then I've been working, ever since A levels, I've been working as well. And then doing the 9 to 5, thinking, okay, this is a great job. I did stock brokering, bonds, everything, primary markets for a while, for like a year. Understood the financial markets. I thought it was a cool job. And then I was like, but this really doesn't give me the freedom I need as well. And then got into infrastructure development projects and thought, there is some sort of coolness in doing it. And I thought, there's a lot of work around it, development work, infrastructure development. And then slowly, I was also looking for basically what got me going. And then I always had I would say, a massive bond with nature. And that's the only place where I thought I always felt free. So I think in about 2016, 17, I also kind of came to a decision where, I want to be able to be around nature, do things that allow me to surround myself with nature and build around it and maybe try and give back as much as possible. And that's when I actually even got into renewable energy development. And then slowly, with my passion for wildlife itself, I thought, why not get into wildlife tourism and conservation? And then started off a new company, and then we've been expanding that as well. And then I did my first paddy dive about a couple of years ago.
Nice.
And that's when I actually fell in love with the ocean because I thought it's a completely different world. And
I agree with you because that's how I felt when I first did my scuba dive. It was back when I was 13 was my first dive.
Wow.
Yeah, I was working on a very like a side project, like helping out researchers with the turtle conservation project at that point.
Nice.
You would have heard about it. Like it's a very old, like one of the projects that was started down south.
Okay.
It was all the way from Ambalangoda all the way to Gaul.
Wow.
Yeah, it was on the whole stretch. Like it was, I still remember it was a project about green turtles and like how about their return to the beach on laying eggs and kind of stuff like that. So I do remember I was sponsored by IUCN at that point, like in order to go for those dives and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, I would totally agree with you. It's entirely a different world. It's so calm and like different colors to your eyes
And when I first saw the corals, I was like, wow, is there really like a world? It's a completely different world. But the irony is that, being in a country like this, where there's so much of wildlife, so much of diversity, still half of the population doesn't even know what exists in this country, even the resources and the beauty to see. I completely agree. And even, I don't think half the population even knows that there are turtles in this country, to be honest, up to now.
I mean, not just one, like all major five comes to Sri Lanka from the smallest to the biggest.
Exactly.
Interesting. And like, I could like kind of relate to this as well because I started studying wildlife when I was very young again. And I was more interested in snakes, like in reptiles, and that's kind of where I started. I have my like my basic studies around, like did a lot of research with crocodiles and snakes, and like focused a lot on conservation. And that was also something that I really missed when I went back to like a corporate world where you just work and like very minimum time. The only wildlife contact I had after that was to go to the zoo whenever it's possible, just go see and come. But
So is the most depressing, to be honest, but yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it. But yeah, I think the next question what GLX has said like to ask me.
Let me
was
take
to
the
get
question
into
for you.
fisheries.
So, what made you get into the journey to be an entrepreneur in Sri Lanka in the agriculture industry? Because that's more in yours.
Yeah. So my agree was, as I told you before, like it was trying to source like for the restaurant. But when the pandemic hit, I understood even a bigger picture, like being a new dad and trying to get something better for the little one. And then also made me realize like, because that's when all the supply stock coming in, like, and very limited, which came in. And then while started searching for like direct contacts with farmers and stuff, like people who are really concerned about what is going out, is like kind of like the black truth that I understood, that most of the things that we get is like soaked in chemicals. Even some of our farmers who grow it doesn't want to consume it. So it kind of like scared me, like where this whole thing is going on or where it is being taken. And then again, there was also a picture in my head, like I believe like most of the people have, like if you want to start something in agriculture, you need to have hectares of land or
That's
like
true.
acre
That's
of
true.
land.
That's
That's what
that's
they
the myth, right?
all think, yeah. And I didn't have anything. I only had a balcony and I had a land, but then again, it was never thought like I could be able to start something in the heart of Colombo, kind of like a situation. But that is something that kind of like drove me to think differently in terms of like what, let's see what other countries are doing, and why it is always like you need to have an acre, or like that's kind of like a minimum requirement when you want to start business. They're like, ah, you have a farm, how big is this, how many acres? That was kind of like the
I agree.
questions.
I
And
agree.
but nobody thinks like you can actually grow sufficient food for a family of six in a balcony,
That's because I
and you
think in
have
Sri
constant
Lanka,
supply, yeah.
I think in Sri Lanka, for everyone, when you say you're a farmer or that you're growing something, everyone believes that you have a massive piece of land, or you know that.
And the other thing is also like there is also like a social kind of like how do I say this? Like in Sinhala, they say like "Wapara balana scene." Like they just don't kind of like appreciate that you can't, or they don't like to call themselves as a farmer. Okay, where do you work? Or like I'm a manager of so and so company, or like I'm a CEO. But kind of like they don't want even to talk about, oh, this guy is a farmer. Okay, what do you do? Like it was a big challenge for me to explain this to my own parents as well, because like they were like, okay, you are working on such a big enterprise and now you are stopped, you started a restaurant. Okay, COVID came, now you want to be a farmer now. Doesn't make sense, kind of like. But for me it made total sense, because all what I thought is this not to go as a business, but I will at least have food on my table every time, and that is like the most safest food that I can have my hands on
That's
is
true.
what I produce. So this is kind of like what actually drove me towards agriculture, and then also the passion that I share with you, like the passion towards wildlife and my knowledge on science. And I basically knew how plants, uh, like how plants grew, or like what the science behind it. But I was not a farmer. I was not an agri person to understand like how these fertilizers to how these and that and ABC of this farming works. But in general, as everybody or as a science student, I had this a whole idea of what plants need to thrive. So
That's awesome.
combining all of these things is what I wanted to take up this risk. And it was honestly a risk, but then took it, and today I'm here.
That's crazy. And I think, in Sri Lanka, we're a small island. We have limited land and space as well. So I think what you guys are doing in terms of developing gardens and farms on an urban setting and being able to maximize that space and grow products for your own home, that's an amazing thing to do, obviously. So yeah.
So this is also like, and at the end of the day, it's very it's a beautiful feeling as well. Like you plant a seed, and then like in about 3-4 days you see the first leaf coming out. It's just like
Like
it's
growing
an
a baby.
amazing. Trust me, growing a baby is much more difficult, but growing a plant is much easier. and and then, but it's always it's nice, like when you see that something from your hands has grown out, and they start flowering, and then you when you first get whatever the first veggie that you got. I actually started with a chili plant, and when I pricked that first one chili out of it, because it was not on fertilizers or anything, it was just pure organically, to see how things will thrive, like how the plants react to different kind of stimulations or like environments, is what I was doing before I go into big scale. Because as I said, I had to gain that right experience, because I feel like that was also a valuable lesson when I started the restaurant, just because I'm passionate about cooking, and I knew how food is produced, but I was not good at what I was doing in terms of a business person when it comes to running a restaurant. And then COVID contributed, the pandemic, things locked down, and things went south. But I won't regret anything, because it was like a really big learning curve. And I think I used all of those experience in doing what I'm doing now, in terms of starting small and giving myself more room to fall all the time, because that's what I was always thinking about. If I'm like this high, to fall down is gonna be a big risk, but I was okay to kind of like fall off again and again in order to start learning things. And yeah, as you said, with limited space, like there's magics that you can do if you just know how things work.
And I think to answer that question on for myself as well, I guess why I wanted to start something in this space. It's not the fishery space itself. For me, what I thought was because the more I studied about Sri Lanka, our geology, our geographic location, our strategical location, our resources, what I understood was our exclusive economic, we're island at the end of the day, right? And our exclusive economic zone is 8 times the size of our land mass. This got me thinking to understanding that our actual potential is actually in the ocean, and with technology evolving and the world evolving, I saw so many businesses, so many engineering marvels actually moving offshore. And it's not, nothing is done on land, power generation, everything is done offshore now. So this got me thinking a lot. And then the pandemic for me was also like one of the main trigger points at this point to kind of build something that will help us kind of grow the economy and get things going. And during the pandemic, I thought about, I was reading about, like I've been into climate change and understanding more about it. And then, one day came across some articles on seaweed, started reading up on it, kind of thought this is my calling at that point, and then just really got into it. And then I realized, we're island. If that's obvious, that means seaweed can be grown around the island as well. And then during the pandemic itself, right after the pandemic, right when we were going through our economic crisis, when there was zero fuel available, I did my first trip to Jaffna for the seaweed hunt itself. I took a train, and then when I went to Jaffna, the took guy asked me for $16,000 to go around Jaffna. And I was like, "Are you nuts?" Found a friend I knew in Jaffna, found his bike, jacked 2 liters of fuel from him, and did a full trip around Jaffna. Went, scouted out some locations for seaweed, and then basically started off the journey. And then I thought, there's massive potential for this, and I thought seaweed is something. And then right after that trip, came back to Colombo, incorporated Carbon Blueprint, and I thought, this is a company that I'm going to build for developing Sri Lanka's blue economy. And also I thought the seaweed industry in itself had massive growth opportunity here, because I saw islands like countries like Philippines, India, Vietnam doing crazy stuff with seaweed itself. So I thought, why not Sri Lanka? And then started researching on it, started reaching out to government agencies to start getting the permits. The only thing for me, I think that's a bit different from your end is for you to develop the business, it doesn't require a lot of government permits and stuff like that. But on my end, there's a lot of government permitting required and a lot of red tape that I needed to get across, and a lot of bureaucracy may I add to that as well. So it took me some time, and then started kicking things off, and then started focusing the company on two different things, basically the blue economy and the seaweed industry. So it was, last couple of months ago, only I got my own farm up and running. Up until that, I was just working with a few farmers and just going and visiting. But when I built my own farm, and when I was in the water and putting the seaweed in, tying it up, putting the sticks in, tying the ropes, and putting the seedlings in, it felt like it felt so good. I hadn't got that feeling for a really long time. So that moment when I was in the water doing that, I realized this is what I really love doing, because it enabled me to be in the water, because I'd say I'm a massive water baby, if you want to say, and seeing the ecosystems around it. So there's fishes on one side, there's corals on one side, and so many different types of plants that grow. And that kind of actually triggered it even more, saying that this is something I really want to build and take forward now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to add a little bit for what you said. Like you said, you did a lot of research and stuff. Like I am coming from a background where the conservation and things have been like kind of like fed into my system when I was very young itself. And then there were certain things that I was that kept me bothered or kept me worried, but it was in kind of like the shadow because I had no way to react towards it. Especially when it comes to climates and what is currently happening and all. And one of those very recent tragedies were like the one in Poland now, the Mitotamulla garbage mountain was a disaster, and I was a part of the volunteers who were like in terms of like the first line rescues and stuff. And again, coming back to when I got my baby in my hand, like things started changing, and it was more kind of like a trigger in terms of like, you know, and it's just not mine. Like there are like thousands of children who's there to see the future, and like okay, now I decided I'm going to grow. Okay, one question is answered, like okay, it's food security, at least to a family or a community. I'm secured now. Like I'm able to do some sort of a like my 2 cents towards that. But then what more can I do while I do this is when I really started focusing, and I something that is there in my head for a long time is the sixth mast extinction. You would have heard about it. It's a very popular topic, and I was like just after like my O level was when tsunami was there, and then just right after, maybe a year later only, I actually learned about this, and then pretty much understood that we as a human are the reason for the sixth mass extinction, and like what as an individual I can do is also a question that was there on my head for a long time. And when I did because I had a lot of time during the pandemic, like lockdown.
We all did.
Yeah, we all did. I used it to do a lot of research on like what more other countries are doing in terms of managing their waste and kind of stuff. And to be honest, like waste management is a very expensive topic when you talk like where a lot of tech and things are involved. But then again, there is also other ways of doing it is what I learned and understood. And then countries again, even countries like Africa is doing very good job in terms of managing their waste management, like in terms of organic waste, at least like plastics and stuff is something that I can't tap into right now. But then there are things that I can do in under my control, at least through producers that I consume and like what I can do. And pretty much that is when I wanted to do two things parallelly under one name. And that's where the waste management actually came into play. And that was also a plus for me because all those waste are right now transferred into money in the sense I transfer them into fertilizers, which saves me money in terms. And also it helped me to move with the community very fast because for them it's a very easy way of getting rid of their waste, and it just comes into my dump side. And I kind of like, yeah,
Be the next goal, right, for someone else. So
obviously someone else's garbage is someone's gold or like money, kind of like a situation. And but it actually helped me like fend at least to my levels in terms of eliminating my green gases, you know, greenhouse gases and stuff to a certain control. And I believe that that is also something like really kind of like a thing that I'm really proud about doing as an entrepreneur right now.
no, definitely. I think for one point, I think climate change is something that a lot of people in Sri Lanka or even our friends barely take serious or even know about. And
Or
then
they don't even want to believe.
they don't
say
want to
that
even
this
believe
is
it.
just a topic that, you know, the world is running around with fine.
And even for me, I want to do my part and see what I can do to, you know, help with climate change and be a part of the climate change mitigation and the whole decarbonization process. Because I agree, now that you have a kid, you know, you want a future for them. Even for myself, I've thought about it. Why would I even want a kid to come into this world with us knowing everything that's going on now, right? I don't even think we'll be able to survive the next 50 to 100 years. Like I said, the sixth mass extinction is going to screw us very soon. So
Big time.
it's nuts. But yeah, like that. So I thought, you know, that got me really thinking. With climate change itself, I thought seaweed itself is a application, is a plant that I thought is one of the most renewable resources that is given to us, because you don't need land, you don't need fertilizer, and I don't need fresh water to build it for it to grow. It just grows in the ocean. But then at the same time, climate change is a big issue for me also, because with the waters heating and then, you know, the weather patterns changing all the time, there's a massive risk for the seaweed plant itself. But I think seaweed is quite resilient, it's been around in the world for a really long time. I think algae's been here longer than most of us. So I think it will adapt, but I'm not sure if us humans will be able to adapt as fast as that is. But for me, I think seaweed can do a lot of things, and for us, we're already working on multiple applications with it: human feed, animal feed, biofertilizer, and I hope at one point the value addition that we do with the seaweed will help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions as well, and kind of help in this.
This is all about because what I believe is this was one of the questions when actually I was a part of the accelerator program. Even before the actual program kicked off, like there were questions raised isn't your business like something that someone else can copy? I said I'm kind of like really happy if someone is doing it, because my ultimate goal is like, yes, you need money to live. I have no doubt in it, and I'm not gonna deny it at any point. But then again, that's the only thing that we need to live, because like there will be one point there money won't have any value.
We need food
And
more
yeah, so it was kind of like pretty much the same thing. And then what I wanted to say is like always collaboration is something really important. It doesn't for me, let's say like I am having a 20 purchase model farm right now, which is what I'm building. But I have the capacity of producing fertilizers enough for acres in that small space. And I'm not going to use it. So if I want to keep this whole thing for me, and then there's no point of me doing what I'm doing as well. So it's kind of like a collaboration is what is important. And the way that you grow, like every seaweed that you grow, it absorbs a lot of carbon into it, right? So you have the capacity of growing more, and then, at least balancing it out with the people who are not doing it.
Correct.
Right? So that's how this whole thing has to work, rather saying that, okay, no, I'm the only contributor doing towards this, and if the world starts going into that level, which is already, sadly, that's how things are working right now.
Correct.
But I hope at least people like us could do a small change in it and show that example out, saying that, collaboration is no harm. It's just about it, because I might learn something really new from you, because seaweeds also, like, since it's an aquatic plant, like you have correct me if I'm wrong, like there are like red seaweeds and stuff, right?
Yes.
So
there's
red when
and
it
brown.
grows, it needs iron, right? So I do aquaponic as well. So aquaponic doesn't actually give iron out. It doesn't make the fish poop doesn't make iron. So maybe you might come out with an organic, natural way of like mitigating this, or kind of like mimicking it, saying that, okay, this is what the plants need, and I can just copy it back into my system.
No, definitely.
You understand?
I agree.
Or it might vice versa. I might say, okay, look, Masha, this is working for me. Why don't you take a small sample and try it out and see, like, let's see how this is working or how this is reacting. That is how I believe we are going to thrive, rather
Correct.
because
I believe this monopoly system and people thinking, okay, I started this, no one else should start this, only I should do this thing is crap. I think if we go on that model again, we as society are just going to fail again. And I completely agree. Collaboration, sharing information, data, and understanding how the system works, understanding how environment works, how species and how all these, biocompounds, chemicals interact and work. And the best way for that is, sharing knowledge amongst people who are in the business, who understand the industry and stuff as well. So I think collaboration is very important. And I think in Sri Lanka, that's something that lacks a lot, because people think you'll take idea and run with it. Yes, a lot of Sri Lankans do that, but then you got to trust some people and put this information out as well.
But I would also say, stealing ideas is something else. When, let's say, the idea is from you, the A to Z on what you thought and how this actually came out. Just because they have that little information saying that, okay, this is what you're going to do,
Doesn't mean they can
whatever
build
they
around
steal
it.
is not going to thrive, or that's not going to sustain at all. They might start it if, because people ask me like, okay, I didn't have the money initially when I wanted to go commercial. But then, but there's only way for me to get money is like to talk to people and like say, this is what I'm kind of do. But then, as you said, when I wanted to pitch, I know I'm going into people who have enough land and enough money to start it the next day. But I didn't have that fear as well, because one thing I would have loved if they have started, but then again, I also didn't have the fears, knowing that this is just my, like I know the core and the depth of it, and like where this
know
will
how it
end up.
works.
Yes, because you try it and you have already lived that entire thing on your head not just once, maybe multiple times, to realize in different dimensions on this is what will happen, that's what will happen if you do this, but all what those people know is what you are expecting out of it, and then it will never come out the same way that you want. So this is something that I wanted to tell it out to other. And as you said, for collaboration, like programs like these accelerator things, like with GLX and places, there are a lot of other places emerging in Sri Lanka as well, who is actually helping out entrepreneurs to come out, because sadly for someone like me, like there are a lot of people in my community as well. Like I'm not telling based on a religion or anything. It's just from where we were brought up, and my parents are like not that literate, and they come from these houses, like slum kind of setups. Like, for them it's always about you go to an 8 to 5 job and then you're kind of like a secured. But then if everybody starts thinking like that, then where will this whole world, or where will the new things will come out? And so these are kind of some of the fears that I believe the youngsters have as well. As you said, now you kind of like wanted to do,
Wanted me to become a lawyer, and once I became they did not drop it for the longest, but once they understood what it is I was doing, took about 6 years to explain to them, and then only they realized, okay,
I'm
you
kind
do
of like
this.
going through that transition right now, because like my mother,
It's nuts.
So I recently got my goats like confirmed, and then the goat foods got delivered like I think 2 days ago, and she kind of like got really annoyed, and I said like, oh, now everything is done. Now you're gonna go goats. Yes, she has no clue what on earth I'm gonna do with the goats. Yeah, and for her it's like as I said at the beginning, it was like a state of like a lower on the status. Like, okay, this guy used to work here, and he went like recently there, here, and all this, but no one knows like why actually I went. I was in US working in a farm.
No, it's a fast
Yeah,
pacing.
I mean like
The
that's
world's
a,
moving really
yeah,
fast.
but then but I think these are like hurdles. I still believe like the others who are there to come out might have this as a fear.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I think there's a lot of programs in Sri Lanka now trying to help entrepreneurs, but I think GLX in itself has some sort of very unique characteristics to it. It has a massive community behind it, and it's people that are actually really passionate. Even the team from Randula to India, Sasini, the entire team, Tushan. What I saw was they're really passionate about it, and they're even the connections we've made over the last 6 months with them has been really genuine, and they passionately want Sri Lanka to work. I'm sure they would have had enough and more opportunities to go abroad and kind of do it. But I think they stayed back.
Exactly. Like who's one of their team members? I mean, like she lived in States and now staying here and helping us out.
Exactly.
And
That's I think GLX in itself is a great program, and we got to met a lot of other people, and I think the network, the community they are building is great, and what they're doing is not an easy task to help entrepreneurs and also bringing everyone together.
people like us.
Exactly, they're not easy people
I mean,
to deal
like,
with.
oh my god, like I gave them a hell of a time when I was there, because I kind of like traveled the last month when I was in US to so many different places, and they were like, I fix a time, and then that's like 4 o'clock in the morning for me, and then like I wake up and then I like tell them, okay, I can't do this today. Let's kind of like do it about
Must be really pissed off with
my
you most of the time,
God.
because I said, okay, I can't make it today, I can't make it next week, but they adapted as well, and they dealt with us, and
That all comes because they genuinely wanted to see a change. It's not just
Exactly.
like for the sake of doing.
And I think even to give a massive shout out to even the experts they brought in, and then even the contacts they brought into us was amazing. From Dr. Ajanta to Dr. Punyavardhana.
Like when I wanted to do the beekeepers training, like in through the government
Massive
stream
influence,
itself. Oh my god!
massive government
So
influence as
all
well.
I had to do was to make a phone call and like say, okay, so and so wanted me to do this training, and when is kind of like the closest date that you all can give me. People are there on queue. I'm not saying that this is the right thing to thing what I did, but then again, in terms of like the resources is what I wanted to highlight.
It's
Because I
Sri
just
Lanka.
got
You
the
have to
day,
be able to
yeah.
get around.
Around, and the experts they introduce us to really did help us, and it got us to meet a lot of people, cut a lot of red tape we needed to get the answers we needed much faster, and they've been very helpful and amazing mentors as well.
And also like very motivating. For example, like in my case, like when Aniruddha first visited, he said like, he literally said like, Faraj, don't bother about things like and also don't look into 100 million things for you to do at the same time. So their guidance actually helped me because like when you once you start when you kept your first step and then you just wanted to run, kind of like, and you doesn't know that where this is gonna go end, but then they
Again,
made
it's a
sure,
steep
yeah,
incline after
yeah.
that.
So they made sure that I don't run, I walk, and like I will get my chance to run, and that's when I have to run. It's not as soon as the race started. So those kind of stuff were like very helpful. Some of the lessons I would never forget in life, regardless of business, because it's such a vast knowledge of experts. Especially I'm like shit in managing money. I'm a marketeer, man. I know already to spend. You give me
Manager there.
you give me $1 million to spend in 2 days. I'm very happy to do it because that's what I have always done in terms of spending is what because that's how you get your budget right. Okay, you have this many millions, spend it. So I'm very good at spending, and then but they actually made me sit down to understand how the financial structures has to work in a farm or like in any business in that case. So now at least I have kind of that knowledge, like to an understanding where people can't like play around with me. I wouldn't say I'm expert in money still, but then it's still I now know how I understand like when certain terms or jargons are used at me as a businessman.
No, that's right. I think, like I said, the team's been great. The people they've introduced to us has been great, and massive shout out to the GLX team and also USAID also for the support they brought into us as well. I think we're going way past most of the questions, but then there's a question on problem solving, and they're asking us.
I think we kind of answered,
Answered it, right?
most of it, and yeah.
But
So
then just to add to that, I think for anyone who starts or wants to start a business, what I would say is you'll always have problems to solve. Because for me, I understand when I solve one problem, I have 10 other problems the next day morning when I wake up. So if you want to do something, go ahead and do it. And my advice is problems, take it as an opportunity, use the problem to your benefit, see how you can leverage it and get the best possible outcomes you can from it. And if problems are not there, life's going to be damn boring. So I think, and take your problems head on.
exactly. I mean, you face it and then you learn from it,
Exactly.
and that also makes you, as an individual, a very strong person, and that
what
is
the
something
name does.
really, really important as a business person. I would say, like because it's not always up. Sometimes, because I mean, sometimes as someone just said a couple of hours ago, like when we were having this chat with the others, they were like, there was someone's told like sometimes an entrepreneur is like onto the peak, like sky is the limit, and the next day they are kind of like suicidal. But it's always about finding that balance in between and managing everything, because there's something that I really realize is people think that when you run your own business, it's not like an 8 to 5 job anymore. Or you do work whenever you want.
24/7.
But exactly. But then that 24/7 actually teaches you to manage your time, and it creates a lot of discipline within yourself itself, because nobody's monitoring you. Nobody's behind you poking. Okay, you do that, you do this, or this is what has to happen. But then if you don't do it, then it doesn't happen as well.
That's correct. And I think
With time management itself, prioritizing and making sure what's most important and categorizing in time management is very important. So definitely.
And I think the last thing, and I don't want to bore the people who are listening to us as well. Like, and as an advice to an aspiring entrepreneur is what they have asked. Like, what do you say, Andrew?
My advice is don't quit. Keep trying. At one point, your dreams will become a reality. But you got to be realistic in what you want to achieve. You got to set timelines. You got to set budgets. You need to understand what's achievable. Sri Lanka is for most of the young entrepreneurs who want to come out, I would say, is Sri Lanka is a land of opportunity that you can do so many things. And if you stay at it, if you stay confident, if you stay focused, and if you know the goals you want to reach, you can. But it's not easy. There's a lot of time you need to put in, a lot of hard work. And if you hustle hard, I think you can definitely make it. And just keep going at it. Don't give up is what I got to say.
I totally agree with you what you said, but then I think I would have liked to add a little bit more towards it. Like people has a fear of I don't have enough capital to start this. I don't have enough money to start it. I started this on my balcony with just what I had at home. I didn't even have money to buy grow bags, but I used like old like broken basins and stuff, and filled it but it took time, as you said. It took 18 months for me to get my first support from people. Like I did a crowdfunding, and like people who are close to me also kind of like didn't have the trust on what is or where this is going. But as you said, it's a consistency game. You keep doing what you are doing, but also whether it's a thriving business or whether you're getting into it or you're starting, and there is also something that you need to learn is when to let it go as well.
100%.
Yeah, because that is also something I learned when I was in US. Like I know this subject, but you never understand until you really feel it. So what what happened is one day there was like a huge line of rope that was tangled, and then I have a lot more left as well, like which is untangled. Like we could have easily used it, but then when I first started, untangling it, like the first knot went off. It kind of like got involved into it, and I end up spending about 2 hours of my time for just to untangle it. And my mentor over there, he didn't tell a word. What he did is he kept a timer. So I thought he's actually motivating me with a timer, giving me like kind of like a challenge, and for me to finish it. Okay, let's see how fast I finish. But then later on is what I learned my most valuable lesson, because he said the entire line of that rope was about $10. And if I would have hired someone to work for me right now, I would have probably, let's say I pay the lowest of $10 per hour. So it's like I wasted $20 of my time for something 10, which is not even 10, because it was like couple of feet. He could have simply cut it off. But what he said is why he let me do it is for me to understand this. And it was in the start of summer. It was almost about 80 Fahrenheit on that day. I was standing on sun and I was doing this. And but the way that he let me do it is something that I'm never gonna forget now. And then now I know like when the time is, like but it doesn't mean that you need to quit there. It's just
you got to keep doing it until you realize where
I could like give a practical example. For me, what happened is I wanted to do something with go-to-color when I started, but then the way that I wanted to do it was entirely different. But then I also realized, like, okay, my goal is to grow something, and it doesn't have to be go-to-color itself. Like, what is my next alternative? Is kind of like, that is what I'm saying, like when you have to draw your line. Doesn't mean that, okay, I just need to do go-to-color. Even if it is kind of like a very loss for me, or it's drowning me, is not what an entrepreneur should do. It always should know, like, okay, because you have already, let's say, invested on a certain set of things, and then how do you restructure your infrastructure or your resources and go forward, not drown with it and lose everything at the end.
I think that's where the whole point of keeping milestones, being realistic in what you want to achieve, and budgets, that's I think where those come in as well. I will add to that where you said, a lot of people in Sri Lanka think that if you don't have money, you can't start a business and all, but that's like you said, that's completely bullshit.
Yes.
And you can, even with 10 rupees, you can start something and get it there. And even myself, most of the company, exactly, it's all a commitment.
If someone wants to do an online business, I mean, it doesn't have to be always like you need to have this fully fledged tech-based website right there, which is attractive. Start with a Google site. That's free for you. Make some money, invest, and that's how you need to grow. Rather, you sit down and wait like, I don't have money to start my own website. Oh God, I don't know when I will make it, and then that's the end of it.
And that's what I said.
Like you said, there's plenty of ways to get money to start a business. Even if you have a good idea, there's so many ways for you to test it out. And there's so many grant opportunities, so many crowdfunding opportunities. There's a lot of people who want to invest in things. So I think if you have a good idea, take it out, talk to the people you trust, see how you can get it going. And you don't never think money is a barrier. You know, money comes, money goes, you can make it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I think we're at our timeline.
Yeah, I
think
know.
so.
I know people are listening, and I just don't want
So you
them
want to say thank you to all and signing out from Trace City GLX.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, guys, everyone. Have a good day, and all the best for all the entrepreneurs out there.
Keep regenerating.